is intended only for mature audiences.
Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's J-Man. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm J-Man.
This is Tiny.
Hi.
So you've heard of crime enhancers, right? Aggravating factors that would take things from robbery to aggravated robbery, like
A weapon.
presence of a gun.
Yep, a weapon.
We have statute of itself for crime for the benefit of a gang.
Oh, yeah. Being part of like an organized crime group or something like that.
And not full on like RICO, like, you know.
Mafia. Yep.
Or talking about street gangs and shit like that.
Sure.
Where they tack on that extra charge as a sentence modifier. Here's something that has gotten out of control in our society that I see all the time on Twitter, to the point that I don't even want to go on Twitter anymore. It's so prevalent that it just makes my stomach churn, is people committing crimes for fun on social media. They record it and they put it all out there into the ether of the internet, and then it gets retweeted, and they're doing it for social media clout.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to argue here is that there needs to be a crime enhancement for social media involvement with crimes committed. Theft, assault, sexual assault. I mean, if you take a video of you doing something to somebody while they're unconscious or drunk, one, you're a fucking idiot. Two, you've now broadcast it, so that makes it possibly fall under the state revenge porn.
I would say one, you're a perverted prick.
Yeah.
Two, you're an idiot. And three, yes. But
like the revenge porn was born from all these people that had cell phone pictures and videos of their exes and was like, you know, disseminating it online and such.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they had to make that law. So as the criminal justice system evolves slowly at like 1/10 of the rate that society does based on the internet, it's time for us to have a sentence enhancer for all these young kids now that will go and they'll play with illegal guns on camera. They brandish them and they talk all shit and they act like they're fucking gangbangers. Years ago, it was the knockout game, right? People would just run up on a motherfucker and punch him in the back of the head and then run.
Yeah. Which could kill somebody if you hit your head in the concrete or whatever. And
Well, I mean,
bleed.
if you hit somebody in the back of the skull the right way, you can detach their brainstem.
Yeah.
And I would argue that that would be attempted murder. Or if they do die or something happens, you're going to get hit with manslaughter charges.
Absolutely.
Not just like criminal negligence. Like, it has to be fucking severe. So when you've got people that do drive-bys for gangs, they're killing other gang members. Somebody kills a cop or somebody does something, robs somebody for the benefit of the gang, and law enforcement finds out, you know, it increases your sentence. You're not getting the minimum. You're getting middle of the road. You might get maximum depending upon your fucking rap sheet.
Even if it's a first-time offense, yeah. Because
Absolutely.
there's an aggravating factor. It's almost like a DUI, right? All these other aggravating factors. Did you have a kid in the car? Was the kid belted or not? You know what I mean?
What was your BAC?
Right. Gross misdemeanor versus felony versus, Okay.
So now with the social media thing, it seems like a lot of these videos make their way to Twitter and TikTok. People will do stuff. They'll rob people that are passed out.
Okay.
So instead of simple robbery, there would be a simple robbery with a social media involvement crime enhancement. I don't know how you would title this statute, but it would be an additional charge tacked on every time that the cops, either local or state or county or federal, get a hold of this shit of you doing it. Selling drugs, punching people.
Especially if you're one of those people who actually get some type of monetary benefit from said social media platform.
Definitely.
You know what
if
I mean?
You are
like,
being monetized for it.
Yes. So absolutely 100%.
But they try to clamp down on anything that's criminalistic.
Right.
They will demonetize you.
Right. They try to have those filters in place already, but still, like you said, though, there's a fame level that's being attained here, right? And is that fame then being parlayed into some type of monetization other ways? You know what I mean? So that's why I could understand this aggravating factor, right? Because it isn't just simply for clicks. there's an intention and also a possible benefit from it later on.
And I hate to have to say this, but there's a great disproportion in the amount of blacks versus the amount of whites that are doing this shit. When you see organized theft mobs run in a store and grab whatever isn't fucking nailed down or bolted to the floor, it's usually groups of young black males in ski masks robbing jewelry stores, iPhone stores, Nike stores, shit like that. And we know that we have a crime problem in this nation, the way that things are going. Crime levels went up after the George Floyd riots because everybody was trying to, quote, defund the police. And then a number of cities walked back their involvement and things got worse and people got more brazen. So then having the social media, they're like, they'll never catch me. I'm in a ski mask. But you're doing this hoping that people will see it. You're trying to show off like you're Billy Badass.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not just partaking in the shitty behavior, breaking social norms. You're breaking the law, and you're proving it to the world. And once that gets retweeted, you can't just delete it.
Oh, sure. You want infamy is what it is.
Yeah, and the problem is that with the gangster culture, the criminal culture, thug culture, is the more crimes you commit, the more cred you have. So as a means of trying to stem the tide of all this youth violent crime that's going on, the carjackings, like the Kia Boys around these parts. There's an entire gang, I'm going to air quote this, gang of dudes that call themselves the Kia Boys that steal cars, sometimes with guns, drive them around, crash them, fucking speed through neighborhoods. And the only way that you're going to start to discourage that behavior, because these are people that don't have a well-rounded moral compass, they're not just going to go, I need to change. I'm a shitty person. I'm affecting other people's lives. Like if you steal a car and you crash it, that's somebody's means of conveyance and how they possibly take their kids to school or exchange them for custody or go to work.
So a lot of this, though, is about instant gratification, right? Now, there could be the argument where some would say, well, some of these people are disproportionately affected by social wealth programs and don't have as much, so therefore, they're going to be the ones more likely to steal. But really,
it has a lot more to do with how you are as a person and if you value other people.
Right. And I think a lot of it is instant gratification. Like you said, the whole thrill of stealing it, the whole thrill of the joyride, the whole thrill of posting it, other people seeing it, people giving you comments, positive reinforcement, like, oh, that's so cool, that's so, whatever. Obviously, I'm not using terminology that it's applicable to today's youth, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's a lot of gratification that comes for it through the act, I'm sure.
And it gets further glorified.
No sense of consequences. Yeah.
It gets further glorified by the fact that many of these kids believe and are proved right at the time when they're caught that they'll just get a slap on the wrist, they'll call the parents, they'll pick them up, and that'll be it. They don't do time. There aren't fines.
Well, if the Kia Boys are stealing cars at gunpoint, I don't know about that, but...
Well, that's the thing, is they'll get a whole group of kids, right? And they might crash that car, and they'll all run. And then if they catch one of them, you now have to roll on your friends and be a rat.
Which they're not going to do.
Or you're going to be the one to take the fall. So what they really do when they catch them, instead of them bailing, is they charge the driver. And then all the other involved parties get a slap on the wrist, and they're not really in the system because they know the system would be fucking flooded with thousands of other cases that they don't want to have to take the time to deal with the paperwork and the trial.
And that's
or
a
any
failure
of
of the system, because the system has to be set up to be able to do that, right? You know what I mean? Like, it can't be so inefficient that you can't file and put these kids in the system by on some level for this type of behavior, right? And I get it. There's always been the thing. You're not an adult, you won't do any time, or you'll avoid any serious consequences. It'll be a juvenile record, it won't be visible once you get older. That's always been the history, right? That's always been, I remember being young, that was always what you were told. And it still happens.
And I've been preaching about stiffer penalties for crimes the entirety of this show's existence, which goes back to November of 2015. So 8.5 fucking years, plus that 6 months I took off. So 8 years worth of this show, I've been saying stiffer penalties, make people fear the consequences. I mean, when I talked about running for political office, albeit it was tongue-in-cheek, but I was serious. Like, my platform would be criminal justice reform where there'd be the death penalty again. And no more states' rights. It's a federal death penalty, and if you commit a certain crime, you're
all
not
federal?
getting your fucking appeals. You did it, and there's DNA evidence to link you, like your DNA, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're caught in the act. People caught raping children. Fucking gun to the back of the head. Boom. After your trial, you're guilty. When's my sentencing? In about 5 minutes, there's a room back there with a drain in the floor. You're going to kneel down with a blindfold. You're not going to get a last meal, a cigarette to call your family. We're just going to put you down fucking gangland style and then throw your body in a furnace. People that fucking human traffic, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
If you're trafficking other human beings, not just
Basically,
children, anybody,
yeah.
if you're trafficking other people. So this is both for prostitution or for drugs and shit.
Or whatever. Yep.
Boom, you're done. And if we weed out enough of the shitty people, it should, in theory, scare the fuck out of enough people that don't give a fuck to start giving a fuck. So that's why I'm saying this social media involvement aggravating factor for enhancing crimes is that, we already have all these other crimes with enhancement factors, sentence enhancers, aggravating factors. So why not this now? Because society's evolved. Social media is a huge part of it now. Everybody has a fucking camera in their hands at all times, it seems. Unless you're me and you have a grandpa phone.
Yeah. You can take pictures with that, though. You can take stills.
I can, but they're going to be grainy and they're going to look like shit.
Yeah.
But, if Ryan Reynolds would hear that episode that I made where I said that he should pair with Mint Mobile and a flip phone manufacturer and save the youth, we might not have that problem. But again, so as society evolves and becomes so social media reliant, and these crimes then go from being in the streets to being both on the streets and in the online arena, you now have to punish it dually to discourage that behavior. Because if people are like, well, don't put this online, you've got the argument that, they're a minor. It's not going to matter once they're 18. Well, though, this is going to be online forever. A lot of shit is online forever, no matter what you do.
Right.
Especially if you post it, you can delete the account, but if other people have shared it.
I've already taken copies of it and moved on. Yeah, exactly.
So, the only way you're going to get through these fucking kids is to make it so fucking scary that they snap out of it. Just like, imagine if teachers had carte blanche to beat the shit out of kids now. I don't mean just go around slapping kids for fun because they're bullies, but I mean if a child puts their hands on a teacher, instantly you have free reign to defend yourself with no expectation of losing your job or punishment or any sort of crime charges.
I don't know. As somebody who has a young adult male, I wouldn't want some teacher to be able to put his hands on him and claim that my son touched him or put his hands on him and then he beats him to within an inch of his life. There's got to be some balance, dude. I get what you're saying,
that's
and I know where the anger
we're talking
comes
about
from.
cases where these kids are fucking filming this shit, right?
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that this kid cocked off at the mouth to a teacher. The
In order
teacher
to
told him
get
to
the
leave.
response.
The kid wouldn't leave. The kid fucking shoved the teacher, and there's tons of videos on Twitter of this.
Yeah.
Like at least a dozen in the last year where I've seen teachers. These are not skits.
Yep.
They slap students. They grab by the hair. They fucking fling them across a desk. They start getting into fist fights and shit. And it's scary. But guess what? That's human nature. Somebody pushes you past your breaking point.
Oh, yeah.
Any reason you have is going to fall completely out of your mind. And now it's instinct to fight or flight and you're going to fight.
I've seen videos of that, those teacher responses, ever since you started being able to have cell phones in class that could record videos, right?
Yeah.
That's when you started seeing those videos of teachers just flipping out on kids or kids being so disrespectful to the point where the teacher had to do something, too.
And the last part about this that I want to drive home is I'm sure it pisses a judge off enough when you get a kid in court and they're a smart ass and they keep habitually reoffending. They're a recidivist at a young age.
Oh, sure. And it's nothing's getting through to them.
Yeah. So if you say to them, be like, you're getting the maximum sentence because you weren't just partaking in this, you were flouting reason and you don't give a fuck about the punishment by putting it on there and bragging about it. Because it's not just that they're doing it. It's a lot of them are fucking, somebody gets into a fight. Like that girl, I did the story, the St. Louis school where she got her fucking head slammed against the concrete. And that video is evidence. That's part of what inspired me to come up with this concept. Like, what if the fact that somebody filmed that and showed it to the world I mean, it's good that there's evidence for the family to have so they can get justice, both criminally and civilly. But what if the fact that that fight was glorified enhances the sentence further, or makes it an aspect of why, no matter what defense this girl and her lawyer and her family make about how she had been egged on and teased and she's a good person and honor student, you fucking cracked another girl's skull open.
Yeah.
And now this can be used against you as an aggravating factor against your defense. 'Cause now it's like, well, it's out there. Look at you doing it. You've lost control.
So I think there, though, you'd have to have an argument there. But this was somebody else filming it, right? This was maybe not one of her friends or somebody doing this for a promotional type of thing, or you know what I mean? So there's a gray area there. Like if it was just some bystander filming it and putting it out there, or
that's different. And
right.
I've thought of this because what the key component of charging this sentence modifier or sentence enhancer is that they did so themselves from their own account with a sense of braggadocio. They're glorifying the act. I mean, you're committing it, that's one thing,
right.
And the video serves as proof. But are you glorifying the behavior in a way that makes it egregious because you clearly have no consideration for other human beings at this point?
Right. I get it. Yeah. It would be one thing if it was just a bystander, you know, if you could prove that. But yeah, then you'd almost have to say anybody who would be filming then might be suspect, which, you know, maybe then you wouldn't be quick to film it and involve yourself that way too. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do is get people to put the fucking phones down. And if you see a fight instead of filming it, fucking do something about it.
Yeah.
Tell them to separate. Pull them apart, unless there's like guns and knives and machetes.
Well, I was
going to
say, you've heard about people who get in the middle of a fight and then end up getting killed or, you know, severely hurt because they were just trying to break it up and people don't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
You know, so you're right. It's hard for involvement. And like with that one girl slamming the other girl's head against the concrete, it happened so fast. How did anybody could have gotten involved that quick to stop that? That basically went from 0 to 100 miles an hour.
I think the second that she grabbed that girl's hair or ears or whatever she used to slam her head, someone should have like literally dove on her and just grabbed her and pulled her away.
Right. But you don't know if she was just going to pull it and hold on to it just to pull the hair or that she was actually going to slam it back down. But
that's the
cow.
thing. She's fully mounted this other girl who she knocked down and fell backwards and already hit her head. Yeah. And now you're going to continually pound her head. So... Again, if you are sitting here filming yourself, for instance, there was a video, I think, at a YMCA, I want to say in New York. Some kid set up his camera. Mm-hmm. He's like, watch me punch this motherfucker fool right now. I'm going to knock his ass out one punch. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. He runs across the court, runs up to a guy, fucking cold cocks him, knocks him out, runs back to the phone, says something funny, and then the video stops.
Sure.
That is a prime example of what motivated me in this thought process.
It's frustrating.
Because if that shit happened to my kids, I wouldn't just want you to go to court and get probation. I want you to serve time. And if you're bragging about victimizing my child, I definitely want you serving time and suffering in a way that causes you to have some food for thought and hopefully develop and mature, that once you pay your debt to society, air quotes, you come out of it and you're improved and you don't do that shit ever again.
Well, right. You really get an understanding of how insensitive that is, how harmful that could be.
Yeah.
You could fuck somebody up for the rest of their life for just that, for no reason. For one moment of, like I said, gratification. Feeling
for
fun,
likes.
For feeling, yeah.
Fucking ridiculous. How pathetically, morally bankrupt the youth of America are. And they're the biggest segment of this thought process. Is it's youth that are driving this phenomenon. It's not just some guy like, watch me fucking walk up and slap this homeless chick on the tits or something like that.
A lot of it, though, too, we got to remember, this isn't the majority of kids, right? It is definitely one that's getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so, because if it does continue to get worse, if it does become the majority of youth, we are in trouble.
True, but I would then argue that you look at how many of these people that do it, the few, and then you have all these people giving them attention that are of the same mindset that they're glorifying it, which then exacerbates the problem because it makes it seem like it's worthwhile. And you may get some that are on the fence about doing it, and they're like, oh, well, they got this fame, so I'm going to do it too. So those ones that you think are good kids are only acting as good kids, and in reality, they're shitty kids. I think if what you are saying is as true as you believe it to be, then there wouldn't be so many giving out likes and attaboys and comments of the positive variety for these types of videos.
Sure. But I know there's still a lot of good kids out there. I've seen them. I've met them through my, my son and everything else like that. But kids are stupid too. And they'll do stuff just trying to think they're being funny or trying to impress
each other.
Their friends.
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
It spreads because if one kid does it and he gets a bunch of attaboys from people in the hood, I hate to keep harping on the urban segment of our youth population, but this is where it seems the most prevalent is because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have jobs, they don't have the drive, they don't give a fuck, and they basically glorify gang and thug culture. So one kid does it and he gets attention, and 5 kids that watched it go, I'm going to do this shit. And then it spreads.
In a phenomenon that is referred to as social contagion.
So no matter how many good kids there are, how many good kids do bad things because of peer pressure or, social influence?
Oh, right. Well, and there are the ones that would make a mistake, get called out on it, get caught, and they're never ones to do it again because their asshole tightened up so much because they weren't really that type of person. And then you have those other ones that are just straight
pieces of shit.
Yeah. And they'll never figure it out. So I feel like some of this stuff, it doesn't matter what the topic is. There's just been those people within our society all throughout history too. There's always those that aren't going to give a shit no matter what you do. I grew up with them. I graduated with some of them. I remembered them in high school, even back in the 90s and shit like that. They weren't ever going to amount to anything. And they were the ones getting into arrested, outside of high school, a couple times, even by they're 21, they'd been a few times in jail for various reasons. So unfortunately, it just gets so much more attention. It isn't just some isolated incident that only family and friends and people who, in the immediate community know about and maybe read in the local paper, right? Now it's everywhere. Now it's the internet. Now it's global.
Yeah.
Right? Not just local, not just you and your friends.
Because it could be neighborhoods in Atlanta or Memphis or Baltimore or Minneapolis or L.A. or St. Louis. And next thing you know, you've got similar populations in Germany, in France, in Italy that start emulating this shit.
Well, and we've seen it, though, with American culture in general. American culture spreads to the rest of the world no matter what it is. We really do lead the way when it comes to a lot of stuff, no matter what. Hip-hop culture, all sorts of stuff. There was a study recently, and weirdly enough, this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but weirdly enough, they were talking about song lyrics and how they've completely changed over the years. It used to be about, not saying altruistically, but, like 50s, 60s, a lot of love, a lot of, songs about political stuff. Now a lot of the music involves the word me, money, and those types of themes.
Glorified violence.
That too. And it's even worse now. And I thought this was bad in like the 90s, when we were seeing a lot of that stuff and imageries of all, the exorbitant wealth when it came to certain music industries and segments and all that kind of stuff. Now it's even worse. Now it is all completely about me, money, paper.
Hence why they put their crimes on social media.
Yeah.
Because it's all about them and that attention that they crave.
It's just weird knowing that the worst parts of American society have become so exposed by social media.
Yeah.
Like this really laid bare the worst of us by far. Because I feel like some of this always existed. It just
wasn't on film 24/7.
Yeah.
Because we were smart enough to not put our crimes on tape.
Probably.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It. That is at What Do We Call It. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast shoe. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm J-Man.
This is Steiny.
And that's the end.